What is going on, YouTube? Andrew Miller from Hook'emHeadlines.com coming back at y'all today with one of two videos that should be uploaded today. The first one being a look at some of the key recruits and key visitors for Texas for the Texas Tech game on Friday that were impressed by the win. Texas just absolutely dismantled Texas Tech on Friday. If you're a Texas fan, I'm sure you saw it, 57-7 at DKR on Black Friday. It was in front of some 5 dozen visiting recruits for Texas. I think it was a lot more recruits than were initially expected for Texas. At least some of the earlier visitor lists were a little over a dozen recruits. And, you know, a lot of those times you'll get those like last minute invites and things like that. But, you know, I think Texas made a positive impression on a lot of these visitors, some of which were highly touted commits in the 2024 class. But you also had a good group from 2025 and 2026 cycles as well. And so I want to go ahead and get into the 5 key recruits that I listed on my article that I usually do on the site every week if Texas wins, especially if they win at home, if key recruits impressed by their win. I'll link that in the description below as always. And then later in the video, I will talk a little bit about some flip candidates, updates there, just because Texas did have, I think it was 1 or 2 of their, flip targets on campus for the Texas Tech game. And then you also had one on campus earlier in the week. So give some updates there. But yeah, let's go ahead and jump into some of the recruits that were visiting that were impressed by the win. First one is 3-star Denton Geyer defensive lineman out of the 2025 class, Xavier Ukpono. Texas has hosted Ukpono now, I believe, for 2 game day visits this fall. I think he was at the Red River rivalry game on October 7th as well against Oklahoma when Texas was able to host visitors in Dallas since they were the home team this year. But I think this was the first time since week 5 that Ukpono has visited Texas unofficially. He was active on social media. It really seems like he's got a good connection with the staff, namely with Bo Davis. He's the primary recruiter for Texas in this recruitment. But Ukpono, whenever you got a 2025 recruit that's active on social media, showing off the environment, the atmosphere at the game, things like that, that's obviously always a positive sign. And that fit the bill for what Ukpono was doing. It was a crazy environment on Friday. The crowd was raucous for the entire game. Texas had a 40-point lead for a good portion of the fourth quarter and 40-plus point lead for a good portion of the fourth quarter. And, the fans were still there watching Arch Manning. The spectacle of the game between the drone shows, the lights, everything was just awesome. If you haven't seen some of the videos from then, I'll include some as B-roll, but, definitely go check out social media. Some of the posts there, we repost a lot of it and post a lot of the videos on the Twitter page on Friday and Saturday. But, Ukpono, he continues to talk about how he can fit well along the defense. He had talked a little bit about his visit at Texas for the Kansas game in week 5 and his potential fit here. And, a lot of that carried over to this game too. But Texas is one of the schools that he likes early in his recruitment. I believe he's visited Texas more times than any other school this year. Multiple game days this fall. Like I said, him and Bo Davis have a great relationship. He had another successful visit this weekend. Like I said, he feels like he's a natural fit along the defensive line. So this is definitely a guy to watch early on for Texas in the 2025 class. One of the, kind of high 3-star, low 4-star defensive linemen that, has some real development potential. Can play 3-tech along the defensive line. That, again, was an early find by Bo Davis. I think Texas was one of the first few schools among the Power 5 schools to offer Ukpono. So let's go ahead and move on here to number 4. Another recruit that I wanted to talk about that came away from the Texas Tech win impressed is 4-star 2025 wide receiver out of Hitchcock High School around the Houston area. It's Kelshawn Johnson. He's one of the guys that I really like for Texas in the 2025 class. Speedy, about 5'11", 160-pound wide receiver. He's visited Texas multiple times this year. I believe this was his second game day visit for Texas this fall. But he had a lot of good things to say in various post-game reactions and reports. Not someone that's usually very active on social media during or after a visit, but he occasionally is. But it was reported by Steve Wilfong on 24/7 Sports that Johnson had a great experience for his visit for the Texas game. He specifically cited again the environment and crazy atmosphere. And some of the things that caught my eye, he really does believe that Texas will win the Big 12, which they are favored by 2 scores against Oklahoma State in the Big 12 championship game on Saturday in Arlington. But he also says he sees Texas being one of the final 4 teams to make the college football playoff. So, he really sees a lot of success for this team, and seems like he's really been impressed by what Texas is able to do with their wide receivers. And, his fit in this Sark offensive scheme, I think, is really, really natural, either out of the slot or the field position. He's that kind of wiry frame, fast, elusive. You can move him around between those 2 spots pre-snap. So, it's easy to see why Sark and Chris Jackson like him and why he likes his potential fit at Texas. But again, I think this was a very positive visit. And then, he's got offers from a lot of the Power 5 schools around the country too, but he specifically mentioned Penn State, Texas, Tennessee, Texas Tech, Kansas, and Nebraska of the schools that are standing out to him the most. But he did say Texas is one of his top 3 after the visit this weekend. The next name up on the list I wanted to mention, also the first commitment I'm talking about, 5-star 2024 wide receiver and St. Louis University product out of Missouri, Ryan Wingo. Wingo's one of the few 5-star commits that Texas has in the 2024 class, a 2024 class that's going to be pushing for a top 5 ranking heading into signing day next month. Wingo has been a frequent visitor on campus this fall. He's gotten to Texas a lot. I think this was his second visit this month. He was also on campus, I believe it was for the Kansas State game on November 4th at DKR. But, he was seen interacting with a lot of the other visiting recruits, including, the other commitments on campus from the 2024 class. He looked completely locked in. There was a lot of going around on social media. There was a video of that I believe it was Corey Mose from KVU Austin that posted Ryan Wingo walked around the sidelines during the game, and Wingo ended up quoting that post and gave the horns up emoji after the game, and just all around a lot of positive vibes coming from him. Again, seems fully locked in, ready to go. One of the things that I saw in a report concerning Wingo was that he really looks like he's really looking forward to the opportunity to compete for early playing time, because Texas is losing 3 wide receivers potentially to the NFL draft next year and exhausted eligibility. Talking about Jordan Whittington, Adonai Mitchell, and Xavier Worthy. And Wingo being the most talented, highest rated wide receiver Texas has signed in the 2024 class. Wouldn't surprise me if he's able to come in and compete for some early playing time alongside guys like Jonte Cook, like DeAndre Moore. I think Texas potentially loses maybe one to the portal, but is going to be active in the portal again at wide receiver. So, Wingo, another successful visit. Again, getting a guy that is one of your highest rated recruits, especially from out of state, to campus, just it really helps with the cohesiveness of this group in the 2024 class. They can kind of build these connections before they even arrive on campus. I believe Wingo is planning to be an early enrollee at Texas, so getting comfortable here, it's all that's good. Makes for a smoother transition once he gets to campus in January. Next one up I wanted to mention is 2025 edge rusher out of Katy Paytow High School. It's Carmelo Brooks. 6'3", 250-pound edge player. Someone that Texas has really liked that they were offered pretty early in his recruitment. I believe they offered him last fall, like last November, so I think it's been over a year now. But Brooks has been a pretty frequent visitor at Texas. I think this was his 2nd or 3rd game day visit this fall. Check just to be sure on that. But he's another guy that's being recruited by Bo Davis. Davis is Texas' primary recruiter. Brooks has, like I said, built a good relationship. Davis was on this one early. Again, fall of 2022, the offer was sent out. And Brooks had a lot of good things to say about Texas, similar to Kelshawn Johnson in his post-game reaction and comments. Brooks said that he was impressed by just the environment in Austin. He specifically said that the experience in Austin is like 1 in a million. Just said that it isn't a shock that Texas is going to the Big 12 championship game next weekend in Arlington. Kind of speaking to, I think, him buying into the direction of the program and, kind of seeing this improvement that Texas has had year over year. Because when Texas offered him, they improved 3 wins last year, and the defensive line was really starting to get better under Bo Davis, really starting to develop and churn out a lot of good defensive linemen to the NFL. Keontre Coburn, Moro Jomo, guys like that. And Texas has only continued to get better in that regard this fall. Churning out defensive linemen like Byron Murphy, Alfred Collins, Tavondre Sweat. Murphy and Sweat definitely going to be a first rounder, I think, next spring. Murphy probably be an early rounder too. Collins, we'll see, but he's someone that could be a middle round pick. And, at the edge position, Texas getting a lot better there too. You got Colin Simmons committed in the 24 class. You got a good 23 class, I think, with some depth at edge. Ethan Burke, guy that's developing really quick. Barron Sorrell, a guy with NFL potential. I think after another year at Texas, potentially in the 2025 NFL draft, he could go kind of middle round. So, the position's looking up. The trenches are looking much better and are developing at a high rate for Texas upon the move to the SEC next year. So for a lot of these 2025 in-state edge guys like Carmelo Brooks, they've seen the progression, they've seen the development, and, Texas really has their attention. And again, it's not to mention Texas getting their foot in the door early here and really liking what Carmelo Brooks brings to the table. And the last guy I wanted to mention among the key recruits that were impressed by, the Texas win that visited last weekend. Three-star 2024 tight end commit Jordan Washington out of Houston Lincoln Creek High School. Washington, a guy that's been another frequent visitor at Texas among the 2024 commits. I guess I will go ahead and list, I should have done this earlier, but the 2024 commits that were on campus for Texas for the Texas Tech game on Black Friday. Jordan Washington, 4-star IMG Academy running back Jared Gibson, 4-star IMG Academy safety Jordan Johnson-Rebell, and then Ryan Wingo, as I mentioned earlier. I believe those were the four. I'll do some checking to see if there was another one that I missed here, but I do believe those were the four from what I could find on social media and confirming visitor lists. But yeah, Washington, I think he's been to Texas twice now in the last month and a half. He was able to get out to campus. He was able to get out to campus on Fridays since his season wrapped up a few weeks ago at Lincoln Creek. And he just, among the guys that you can really feel the energy from that are excited to get to campus, excited to make an impact and are really locked in. Jordan Washington definitely fits the bill there. Again, frequent visitor on campus. You could see just on social media pictures of him, videos of him interacting with the other commitments and recruits on campus. He had similar to Wingo, but Washington, he's a guy that's got a great relationship with Jeff Banks. More Washington viewed more as a developmental recruit that could take a few years to compete for a starting job at Texas, but he sees what Jeff Banks and the Longhorns did with Jatavion Sanders to turn him into the biggest receiving threat at tight end in the Big 12. And even Gunnar Helm is kind of coming to his own as a solid receiver and a really good blocker at tight end. And for Washington, seeing the ability to come in and compete for playing time, probably by his second or third year on campus, if he really develops at a high rate, that's got to be appealing to him. Right now, he is the only tight end committed to the 2024 class. But, during the weekend, he was super active on social media, posting some pictures of himself, again, with the kind of that crazy atmosphere at DKR. And, just said after the game, he continues to be locked into Texas. He's excited to get to campus as an early enrollee next spring. And overall, I think he's one of the guys that has higher upside at the skill positions in the 24 class, just in terms of the receiving threat that he presents. Just athletic guy, multi-sport athlete. And so that about does it for me for some of the key recruits I wanted to mention that were on campus that came away impressed, because there are some key guys here like Kelshawn Johnson. I think that could be a really important recruitment in the 2025 class next offseason, when you start to see official visits during the summer and, camp season and stuff like that during the spring. Johnson, I think, is going to be one of the guys that Texas pursues in the 25 class at receiver in state. And so let's go ahead and move on here. I wanted to update some of the status of the flip targets for Texas in the 2024 class. This serves as a good transition point because one of the flip targets was on campus this weekend for the Texas Tech game. Took a 2-day unofficial visit. That's 3-star Baylor defensive line commit Alex Foster. Texas offered Foster earlier this fall. Texas still looking to get to 4 commitments along the defensive line in the 2024 class. Right now they're sitting at 3. Bo Davis sent a few offers out in the last few months to some different Big 12 and SEC commits. Foster being one of those guys. He really was I think he was the first flip target that Texas got to campus this fall for a game day. Foster, again, visit started on Friday. He was there for the Texas Tech game, stayed through Saturday. I believe he visited with his mom and grandmother, saw that reported from IT. Did a piece on the site about that, just kind of updating the status there, kind of listing important information from that report. And, Foster, high upside, 6'5" guy, just massive wingspan out of, I believe, Greenville, Mississippi, St. Joseph High School. He's about 6'4", again, 6'5", 250 pounds. IT listed with a 83-inch wingspan. So, Really when you're talking about big humans with the length that you're looking for to kind of be that next level mold in the trenches, Foster definitely fits that bill. Something to watch here is what happens with some of the Baylor coaching staff in the next few weeks. I know that it was announced today that Baylor will be retaining Dave Aranda for another year. So we'll see if guys like Foster, Foster really is the only Baylor commit that Texas is targeting as a flip candidate this fall in the 2024 class, but we'll see what kind of impact that has on Foster, just given his relationships with the existing coaching staff. I know there was some heat around Dave Aranda throughout the fall as Baylor's kind of struggled to put something together on the field this season. A few of the other defensive line targets that Texas is looking at as flip candidates before signing day on December 20th. Four-star Auburn commit and IMG Academy defensive lineman TJ Lindsey. We talked about Lindsey quite a few times. He had Texas among his top schools when he committed to Auburn late in the summer. Over the last month or so, Texas has engaged in pretty consistent communication with TJ Lindsey, tried to get him on campus for a game day. Obviously, that has not come to fruition. He was at Auburn this weekend for the Iron Bowl, that last second win for Alabama. Kind of a miraculous fourth down play, but Texas putting up a good fight here. If I continue to say it, if Lindsey flips somewhere, or if he does decide to back off his commitment to Auburn, Texas is in the best position to land his commitment heading into signing day. But Texas continues to try to chip away there, potentially trying to get him on campus for a visit next month. But he already took his official to Texas. It was back in June. So, you got the relationships there already for Texas. It's just about, can you convince him to back off that commitment to Auburn, because Auburn needs a lot of these key guys in the trenches in their 24 class, and they already held off Texas on one guy that Texas was pushing for to flip from their class, four-star modern-day interior offensive lineman DeAndre Carter took an official visit to Texas a couple of months ago for the Kansas game, but Texas ultimately wasn't able to pull off that flip. He reaffirmed his commitment to Auburn. I believe that was last week on social media. And then another defensive line flip candidate that Texas is looking at that has actually had some movement recently is Terrence Hibbler, four-star guy that Texas was after for quite a while now. He committed to Mississippi State during the offseason and kind of shut down his recruitment from there. Texas had still reached out a couple of times by my understanding, but there wasn't much interest picking up from Hibbler's side of things. That wasn't until recently, Mississippi State fired their head coach. Sounds like they will be hiring OU offensive coordinator Jeff Lebby as their next head coach in Starkville. And, with a complete change in coaching staff and honestly coaching philosophy there, you've already had Will Rogers, Mississippi State's multi-year starting quarterback, enter the portal. And, they didn't reach bowl eligibility this year after falling short to Ole Miss in the Egg Bowl on Thanksgiving night. And so, given some of the potential turnover with other coaches on that staff, and Mississippi State going in a different direction completely with their kind of head coaching philosophy, it wouldn't surprise me to see Hibbler decide to back off his commitment there. Just from various reporting I've heard, it sounds like that Texas really could make a push to make things interesting in this recruitment. Inside Texas, even giving Texas a 50-50 shot to win out there. I know Horns 24/7 also reported that Texas has actually has a real shot to pull off this flip. But right now, getting Foster to campus, I think Texas is pushing there. TJ Lindsey, we'll see how things go, but right now it seems like Foster and Hibbler are the two defensive line flip targets that the most things are happening with right now for Texas, along the defensive line to fill that final spot in the 24 class. And then I wanted to mention some stuff at linebacker and then talk about Xavier Filsaime to round out the video. So at linebacker, the guy that Texas has had a lot of buzz with recently is four-star A&M commit and Jasper linebacker Ty Anthony Smith. Smith, it was reported that he had set an official visit to Texas after the firing of Jimbo Fisher at Texas A&M a couple of weeks ago. Smith was not able to make it to, there were some thoughts that he would make it to Texas for the Tech game on Friday, but Jasper's still in the state playoffs, and they still remain in the state playoffs, I believe, right now because they beat Cuero last week. And so Texas pushing for a December visit for Smith now, but Texas A&M announced today that Mike Elko is their next head coaching hire. Mike Elko, a guy that was defensive coordinator at A&M just a couple of years ago. He's got relationships with some of these guys that Texas A&M has committed in the 24 class, and them bringing in a defensive mind like Elko. It wouldn't surprise me if Smith actually ends up remaining at A&M But Texas is going to continue to chip away here. If they end up getting him to campus for an official visit in the next like 3-4 weeks, then the chance of flipping him still is possible. And then the other linebacker, that Texas is still going after, 5-star Georgia commit and number 1 linebacker recruit in the nation in the 2024 class, Justin Williams. I think there was something picking up with the communication between Texas and Williams a few weeks ago, at least that there was some open communication, the possibility of him taking a visit to Texas for a game day this fall, but that never came to fruition. Texas continuing to fight there. They will through the finish line on signing day. Williams is just that level of recruit where you do that. He's just different, one of the best linebacker recruits that I've seen here in the last few years, at least out of Texas, if not in the entire country. It sounds like at this point the odds of Texas being able to flip Williams from Georgia with the regular season now in the books, not having a chance to get him to campus for a game day. Texas is still going to push to get him to campus for a visit in December. If that ends up coming to fruition, then it gets serious with Texas trying to flip him. But the odds of that don't seem as good as they even were maybe 2 weeks ago. At least the buzz isn't quite there as it was earlier this month. So that about does it for the linebackers. I think right now Texas looking like they're still trying with Smith and Justin Williams in the 24 class, but not as much optimism there as there might have been a couple of weeks ago in terms of the flip candidates at the position. And then last but not least, again, want to talk about Xavier Filsaime. So, Texas been working to flip Filsaime from Florida for the last couple of months. They offered Filsaime pretty late in the cycle, but I believe it was early October. Blake Gideon, Texas's staff been working to get him to campus for a visit this fall. There was some reporting that he might be able to get to campus on Friday for the Texas Tech game. That didn't wind up coming to fruition. He was on campus in Gainesville on Saturday for Florida's game against Florida State that they ended up losing. Filsaime was on campus earlier this week for a midweek visit to Texas. I believe that was Tuesday. So that was obviously a big development here. With him getting on campus, Texas really does have a real shot to flip his commitment. And with Florida missing out on bowl eligibility, with them losing as many commitments as they have lately, I think it's 3 or 4 now that they've lost in in November. You already had Texas flip 4-star John Eric cornerback Wardell Mack from Florida just on November 12th. So Mack's in contact with Filsaime. Texas making a legit push here. We'll see what happens with Billy Napier, some of his coaches on that staff. There's still questions regarding the direction of Florida's program. Nothing's happened with Napier yet, but I'd imagine that he's on the hot seat for a while until he can kind of show he's turning things around. But, the big thing is for Florida that you miss out on bowl eligibility. You're losing commits left and right, blue chip, important commits in the 2024 class. And so, I think he sees a legit shot at playing time at Texas, just like he obviously does at Florida. But Texas got to continue chipping away here. They're still going to have to put in a lot of work on the recruiting trail with Filsaime in the next couple of weeks to make something happen here. But getting him to campus earlier this week for the visit midweek was a huge deal. I guess the last thing I'll say, I know that I'd said that Filsaime was the last part here, but Kobe Black, 5-star cornerback recruit out of Waco Connolly, he makes his decision on November 29th. Texas is favored over schools like Oklahoma State, Texas A&M, LSU, and OU. Other schools have tried to chip away at Texas's lead this fall, but Texas has really held its pole position in this recruitment since I think late in the spring. Kobe Black's got great relationships on this staff. Had multiple successful visits to Texas and for Red River this fall. He didn't end up making it to campus. I kind of figured that once I saw him post on his story that he was at home watching the game on TV. So, but Texas, I think you're feeling great about your position with Kobe Black to get his commitment in the 2024 class on what would that be on Wednesday? Wednesday is his announcement at Connolly High School. So stay tuned for that. But anyway, for Andrew Miller, Hook'emHeadlines.com, that's pretty much it. Hook 'em.